Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses. As we continue with part 44, William Postel, Book 7, Some Christian Students of the Kabalah from the Doctrine and Literature of the Kabalah by Arthur Edward Waite. 7. William Postel. A philosophical, or rather an occult legend, has gathered in an unaccountable manner round the name of William Postel, and it is supplemented by a popular legend which has depicted this peaceable, though perhaps somewhat puerile, monk in a vestment of thaumaturgic splendour. The philosophical legend we owe almost exclusively to Eliphas Levi and to a few later writers in France who have accepted his leading and with him appear to be impressed honestly by Postel's well-intended but too often inane writings, among which is included The Key of Things Kept Secret from the Foundation of the World. Postel was the son of a poor Normandy peasant. By his perseverance and self-denial he contrived to obtain an education and became, on the authority of his chief admirer, the most learned man of his time. Ever full of resignation and sweetness, he worked like a laboring man to ensure himself a crust of bread, and then returned to his studies. Poverty accompanied him always, and want at times compelled him to part with his books. But he acquired all the known languages and all the sciences of his day. He discovered rare and valuable manuscripts, among others the apocryphal Gospels and the Sefer Yetzirah. He initiated himself into the mysteries of the transcendent Kabalah, and his frank admiration for this absolute truth, for this supreme reason of all philosophies and all dogmas, tempted him to make it known to the world. So far, Eliphas Levi, whose undeniable influence upon all modern occultism has done more than anything to exaggerate the true philosophical position of the Jewish secret literature. The redeeming point of Postel is his exalted piety by which he is connected with the mystics. The points to be regretted are his extravagance, his transcendental devotion to a religious and homely nun of mature years, and his belief that he underwent a process of physical regeneration by the infusion of her spiritual substance 2 years after her death. To the Council of Trent, convened for the condemnation of the heresies connected with the Reformation, he addressed a benevolent but unpractical epistle, inviting it to bless the whole world, which seems outside the purpose of a deliberative assembly considering doctrinal questions. The result of these errors of enthusiasm was that Postel was shut up in some convent, a course dictated possibly as much by a feeling of consideration and even of mercy towards a learned man unfitted for contact with the world, as by the sentiment of intolerance. The seclusion in any case offered him the kind of advantages that he most needed, and he died in peace, having retracted, it is said, everything that was disapproved by his superiors. As already seen, Postel connects with Kabbalism by the great fact that he discovered and made known in the West that celebrated Book of Formation, which contains some of its fundamental doctrine. He also expounded its principles in a species of commentary to which I shall recur shortly. His own doctrine has also some points of contact with Zoharistic tradition, though its summary by Eliphas Levi is loose and inexact, like all literary and historical studies undertaken by this modern adept. The Trinity, his interpretation begins, made man in its image and after its likeness. The human body is dual, and its triadic unity is constituted by the union of its two halves. It is animus and anima. It is mind and tenderness. So also it has two sexes, the masculine situated in the head and the feminine in the heart. The fulfillment of redemption must therefore be dual in humanity. Mind, by its purity, must rectify the errors of the heart, and the heart, by its generosity, must correct the egoistic barrenness of the head. Christianity has been heretofore comprehended only by the reasoning heads. It has not penetrated the hearts. The Word has indeed become man, but not till the Word has become woman will the world be saved. The maternal genius of religion must instruct men in the sublime grandeurs of the spirit of charity. Then will reason be conciliated with faith, because it will understand, explain, and govern the sacred excesses of devotion. The particular excess of Postel was that he recognized the incarnation of this maternal spirit in the person of the pious nun before mentioned. Eliphas Levi, who took no illuminations and no enthusiasm seriously, terms this spiritual ardor a lyrical puerility and a celestial hallucination, but there is no lyrical element in the Latin of Postellus, and whatever the source of the hallucination, the lady died, making no sign. Into the question of their subsequent reunion after a manner which recalls the status embryonitus of Kabbalistic pneumatics, it would be imprudent here to enter. From the period of its occurrence, the mystic always termed himself Postellus Restitutus. It is reported that his white hair became again black, the furrows disappeared from his brow, and his cheeks reassumed the hues of youth. Derisive biographers explain these marvels as derisive biographers might be expected, as if, Levi well observes, it being insufficient to represent him as a fool, it was necessary also to exhibit this man of a nature so noble and so generous in the light of a juggler and charlatan. There is one thing more astounding than the eloquent unreason of enthusiastic hearts, and that is the stupidity or bad faith of the frigid and skeptical minds which presume to judge them. A less unsympathetic historian than those confounded by Levi reduces the doctrines of Postel under two heads. 1. That the evangelical reign of Jesus Christ, established by the apostles, could not be sustained among Christians or propagated among infidels except by the lights of reason, which appears wholly plausible. 2. That a future king of France was destined to universal monarchy, and that his way must be prepared by the conquest of hearts and the convincing of minds, so that thenceforth the world shall hold but one belief, and Jesus Christ shall reign there by one king, one law, and one faith. Given universal monarchy as a possibility of the future, no Frenchman who is true to his traditions would conceivably assign it otherwise than to a king of France. However, one or both of these propositions led the biographer in question to infer that Postel was mad, and I cite this conclusion less on account of its essential merit than because it afforded Levi the opportunity for a rejoinder of characteristic suggestiveness. Mad for having dreamed that religion should govern minds by the supreme reason of its doctrine, and that the monarchy, to be strong and lasting, must bind hearts by the conquests of the public prosperity of peace. Mad for having believed in the advent of his kingdom, to whom we daily cry, "Thy kingdom come." Mad because he believed in reason and justice on earth. Alas, it is too true. Poor Postel was mad. He wrote little books at intervals, which I must frankly admit are almost impossible to read. And in the case of the Sefer Yetzirah, the printer has done his best to make the difficulties absolute. But as I have promised to speak of the commentary which accompanies the translation, I must at least say that it should be described rather as a collection of separate notes. Frank recommends no one to be guided by the views which it expresses, but they scarcely suggest leading, as they contain nothing of real importance, and some of them are almost childish. Among the points which may be noted are: A. Defense of the lawfulness and necessity of the concealment of sacred things. B. A pertinent and useful distinction between the terms creation, formation, and making, as used in the Sefer Yetzirah. C. The antiquity of the belief in 10 spheres of the heavens. D. The recourse to numerical mysticism to show why the Sephiroth are, in the words of the Sefer Yetzirah, 10 and not 9, the necessity of the number 10 being shown by the progression from the unit to the quaternary as follows. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10. And this, according to the mystical mode of calculating, brings us back to the unit, even as the external universe brings back the soul to God. E. The attribution of the angelic choirs to the Sephiroth, thus showing that Postel's study of the Kabalah was not confined to the one document which he is known to have translated. Of Postel's original writings, that entitled De Rationibus Spiritus Sancti Libri Duo, 1543, seems on the whole the most soberly reasoned. If unfortunately it has no connections with the Kabalah, it has at least some with good sense. It is useful also for occultists who are disposed to be influenced by Levi, and hence to regard Postel as a very great adept of their mysteries, while it is quite true that he was excessively fanciful in his notions, which are extravagant in the philological as well as the conventional sense of that term. It is not at all true that he had set aside or exceeded the accepted doctrinal views of his period, nor does he appear to have possessed a specific light on given points of teaching which can be regarded as considerable for his period. He upheld, for example, the doctrine of eternal damnation, and justifies it in such a manner that no room is left for the conjecture that he was not saying what he meant. Now, this doctrine is not only intolerable to the occultist, but it makes void his scheme of the universe. For the rest, Postel was a good and single-minded Christian who, in spite of his clavis absconditorum a constitutione mundi, and in spite of the panegyrics of Eliphas Levi, had no knowledge whatsoever of the so-called Book of Thoth, and had never dreamed of looking for a doctrine of absolute religion beyond the seat of Peter. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe and comment, and if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.